and welcome to this evening's virtual Traffic Regulation Order Committee meeting, held by virtue of new regulations introduced by the government. I am Councillor Peter Davis and I will be chairing the meeting. The regulations have been temporarily removed, have removed the legal requirement for local authorities to hold public meetings in person. This will enable councils to make effective and transparent decisions on the delivery of services for residents. The requirement for public meetings to be made accessible to the public remains, and the link to the virtual meeting is available on the council website in the usual live meeting link page. If a connection to a member is lost during the meeting, I will stop the meeting to enable the connection to be restored. If the connection cannot be restored within a reasonable time, the meeting will proceed, but the member who was disconnected will not be able to vote on the matter under discussion, as they will not have heard all the facts. Should any aspect of the external link fail, I may call for a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes or so to determine whether the connection can be quickly re-established, either by video technology or telephone in the alternative. If the connection is not restored within that time, the meeting will be adjourned and any further business will not proceed until another day and time. Any public questions properly submitted to the meeting during this period will be read out by myself and answered at the meeting. Firstly, can I ask the clerk to ask the members to confirm their attendance, sorry.
Councillor Davis.
Present.
Councillor Gloucester.
Present.
Councillor Murphy.
Present.
And Councillor Surgeon.
Present.
Right, thank you. When the committee comes to take a vote on an item, each member will be individually asked to state whether they are against, abstaining, whether they are for, sorry, against or abstaining. We also have officers in attendance to advise the committee. If we can turn now to the agenda, and for the benefit of those members of the public watching, the full agenda pack is available on the council's website. Right, item 1. Do we have any apologies for absence?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any urgent business?
Not been notified of any urgent business.
Thank you. Do any members wish to make any declarations of interest? No? Right, item 4 then. I've been notified of public questions from Paul Holland. I shall read the questions and responses. The first question: does the council TRO panel accept that many of the boroughs are restricted to single flow traffic? Boroughs roads are restricted to single flow traffic by parking on both sides of the road, and why are some areas targeted and others are not? If so, why are some areas actively targeted and others not? I've already said that, sorry. The response is: the council accepts that many roads in the borough are restricted to a single flow of traffic by parking on both sides of the road. The council, as an highway authority, has a statutory duty to investigate these locations, particularly where there are road safety or traffic management, congestion concerns, and where possible take action to mitigate or remove the problem. It must be stressed that drivers have no right to park on the public highway, and the highway authority must be able to exercise its powers to maintain safe and efficient movement of traffic across its network. Interventions are prioritised across the network with the classified routes in the borough, A and B roads given the greatest priority owing to the volumes of traffic and the level of vulnerable user activity pedestrians and cyclists and such like. The next question of Mr. Holland. Does the TRO panel accept that Unity Partnership has a vendetta against areas where TROs have been rejected and in some cases have continued these for 9 years? In response to that, the council does not accept this comment. The next question. What environmental factors are considered when evaluating and comparing speed surveys taken during these unprecedented times to previous normal speed surveys? What is the estimation of impact that having the traffic volume on the roads would reduce overall speed on the roads due to less hold-ups and free-flowing traffic? Also, are new speed reduction signs a major contributing factor to the reduction in speed? And if they were non-functional at a prior speed survey, can this be accepted as a like-for-like comparison? Would speed surveys taken at different times of the year, example where schools are open, closed, be regarded as direct comparisons? A response. The 2 traffic surveys that were undertaken were carried out in accordance with standard national TFGM procedures and took place for 24 hours over a 7-day period and included peak periods during the day and evening, overnight. And on this occasion, 2 surveys were carried out, one pre-COVID and the other after the first lockdown. This is little difference between the 2 surveys, with a variance of around 3 miles per hour. The VAS signs have been recently repaired. These devices are advisory and are not parts of the process that can issue penalty points to drivers. The devices can do have a positive effect on drivers' behaviour and are not a silver bullet. The next question again from Mr. Holland. Why is the evidence comments submitted to Unity Partnership that alleged breaches are by requests households not disclosed to the councillors for comments? In response to that, Unity Partnership has followed the strict TRO panel protocols and those assertions are refuted. Next question again from Mr. Holland. Does any member of the TRO panel, any councillor or any employee at Unity Partnership have any relationship of the kind with the residents of north side of Densho Road? And if so, has this been declared? The response to that, no TRO panel members or Unity employees have relationships with the residents on the north side of Densho Road. The next question again from Mr. Holland. Does the council accept that poorly designed traffic management plans are re-evaluated when further schemes are planned, as this would show failure? The response to that. The council does not accept this allegation. The effects of traffic regulation orders are monitored, and in some cases, proposals are modified or adjusted following feedback. The next question again from Mr. Holland. Does the TRO panel acknowledge that experimental traffic regulation orders are used as a method of bypassing due process and removing the need for public consultation, and are used when proposed TROs have been previously defeated? Response to that. The council does not accept that experimental traffic regulation orders are used as a method of bypassing due process. Experimental TROs are often used as a test proposals, efficacy, and to gain understanding of the merits or not of a permanent TRO that will have long-term effects. I've been notified of some public questions from Claire Allen. Again, I shall read the questions and responses. The first question from Claire. Why have the council published a further report dated the 17th of November 2020 with full details of their recommendations and evidence in support without engaging with local residents directly affected by the proposals, as they have promised to do so on several occasions? Response to that: this is the TRO objections process. The proposals are presented alongside the objections to them and in the accompanying TRO panel reports. The next question from Mrs. Holland or Miss Holland. What provisions are there for those directly affected by proposed schemes to consider any objections raised and consider any further reports prior to the issue being put out by the TRO panel for final decision? The response: the TRO panel will consider the objections and will make a decision at the meeting to reject or uphold the objections. This decision of the panel will be final. The next question from Mrs. Holland. Why was the council's initial report of the proposed scheme dated 15th of November 2018 not released until the 15th of July 2019, some 8 months later? What are the normal timescales for such publications to be released? The response: this is a TRO objections process. The next question from Mrs. Holland. Why do those members of the public who are directly affected by the proposals only get 3 working days to raise any questions prior to the meeting being heard at the TRO panel? And the response to that: this is the TRO objections process. The next question from Mrs. Holland, the last one. I would kindly ask that the panel consider the attached document which sets out the procedures adopted by Unity Partnership in this matter and which seems completely unacceptable. The response to that: this is a TRO objections process. Okay, thank you. So thank you for those questions. So moving on to the matter to be considered this evening. So item 5, members have before them the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of September 2020 and the 12th of October 2020. As not all members were in attendance at the previous meetings, could the clerk ask those who were in attendance if the minutes are agreed as an accurate record?
So for the 24th of September, Councillor Gloucester. Councillor Gloucester.
Yeah, I had my apologies in for that meeting, so I can't say.
Apologies, I thought you attended that one. Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept the minutes. I have got a question though, if that's possible, Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Murphy.
Mr. and Mrs. Holland have submitted a number of questions there. Could I ask that, firstly, that will they appear in the minutes? And then secondly, will Mr. and Mrs. Holland receive a written response rather than the verbal one that they've received at this meeting? So will they get something in writing that answers each and every one of their questions?
Yeah, all questions and answers will be provided in the minutes.
Okay, thanks, Katie. And will they get a direct response themselves, or will they have to wait for the minutes before they actually see something?
Well,
I can send them on to the questioners after the meeting.
I think that would be appropriate if we did so. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Katie.
just going back to that meeting, what was on the agenda to if Councillor Gloucester, it might jog his memory, what was on the agenda?
Well, Peter, if it's the agenda that I'm looking at, my apologies are at the top of it, along with Councillor Akhtar. So if that was the meeting on the 25th of July.
No, that was the 12th of October. We received your apologies. You were at the September meeting.
All right, apologies. Right, I'll unapologise my apologies and agree the minutes then. Apologies.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
So for the 12th
well,
of October.
The 12th of
Councillor Davis.
Yes, I can approve those minutes.
And Councillor Serjan.
Yep, approved.
Thank you.
Right, thanks a lot. Moving on now, item number 6. Objections to proposed prohibition waiting on Densho Road in Delft. Would the officer like to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yeah, so I will run through the basic background to the proposed prohibition of waiting on Densho Road in Delft. The experimental order has been introduced along the length of Densho Road on its north side between Clifton Holmes and Pingle Lane, following concerns raised from residents on the northerly side of the road that their driveway access was regularly obstructed and pedestrians were being forced to walk further into the carriageway in conflict with moving vehicles. The residential properties located on the north side of Densho Road have private off-street parking provision in the form of driveways and garages, but the properties on the south side do not, and therefore rely on parking within the highway. It is the residents from the south side of the street who have been utilising the road space on the north side due to the limit of parking available directly outside these properties. When vehicles are parked on the north side of Densho Road, visibility problems arise for residents wanting to enter and exit their private driveways. The absence of narrow width of the footway along this length can also force pedestrians to walk in the carriageway when vehicles park at this location. The introduction of yellow lines on the north side of Densho Road has previously been opposed by residents who are reliant on highway parking, hence the reason for introducing the scheme on an experimental basis to allow their effects to be monitored. So just going on to the objections that we received. So during the first 6 months of an experimental order, objections can be submitted to the measures introduced. So we've received 11 objections, which have been included in Appendix B of the report. The objections mainly concern the lack of on-street parking now available for residents in the terrace properties and a perceived speeding problem resulting from the removal of the bottleneck previously created by parked vehicles on both sides of the road, which now allows traffic to flow freely at higher speeds. To address the speeding concerns, a speed and volume survey was undertaken in June and July 2019, prior to the rating restrictions being introduced, and again in July in 2020, 12 months later, once the restrictions have been put in place. The surveys were undertaken at the same time of the year to ensure the volumes, weather conditions, etc. were similar in both situations. And the results of these speed surveys are in Appendix C. So, just to explain to the panel that the speed surveys were carried out, and in the first survey, which carried out in 2019, in June 2019, the mean speeds, which is the average speed, was something in the region of 32.3 miles per hour in the eastbound, 31 miles per hour in the westbound, and the 85th percentile was slightly higher at 36.8 and 35.4 respectively. The year after, the same survey was taken, the survey was taken in the same place, and these are slightly lower. So in the eastbound, 29.5, in the westbound, 28.6 for the mean speeds, and the 85th percentiles were 34 and 33 respectively, the east and west direction. So maybe 3 or 4 miles per hour slower. So the reason why these WL lines were introduced is, as I said earlier, is the restricted visibility for people exiting their driveways onto a main road, which has got a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. What I need to sort of explain to the panel is, when we talk about visibility displays, which is what this is all about in terms of a driver looking sideways as he emerges from a driveway onto a main road, as he edges into the carriageway, there's very limited visibility when cars are parked either side of the access. To put this in context, at 30 miles an hour, the stopping sight distance for a vehicle is in the order of 60 metres. So some discussions are being made about the relative speed surveys that have been carried out. Well, in both cases, the early one, the later one, are showing speeds of 30 miles an hour, requiring a stopping distance of 60 metres. Now, that's clearly not achievable if we do not provide double yellow lines at this location for sideways visibility. So the main reason for us proposing these measures is to establish sideways visibility to allow a driver emerge onto the main road to see sideways enough, and the approaching vehicle on the main road to see something emerging from a driveway. So that's one reason for the measures being proposed. The others are to allow two-way movements of traffic safely, because otherwise it's a give and take system. And also, as mentioned in the report, the cars do park on the footway on the north side of the main road, which means pedestrians often have to walk in the carriageway as well. So that really summarises, the issues at play here and the reason why we've made the proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Surjan, you've got a question for the...
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Gary, for that brief introduction. I just want a clarification. So looking at the pictures, are we discussing the cars that are parked on the left side of the photos on the road?
Yes, as you're looking at a series of photographs, and I think the two, well, it depends which ones you're looking at. So
on page 69 onwards, yeah.
So I'll just get them in order because I'm looking at them. So yeah, on the left-hand side of the road,
yeah.
Initially, where there's a car and there's a red one, 2 or 3 pictures. There's a red car in there. Yeah, so that's where we're looking. That's the north side of Densho Road. If you look towards the end of the last photographs, you see a person's arm.
Yeah.
And that's an example in those photographs as the vehicle's parking on the footway where it's quite narrow.
Sure. Thank you. I mean, Chair, if you don't mind, I've just got a few comments about this, if that's okay. Yeah, so I mean, for me, my biggest worry is about the pedestrians. I was quite shocked to see how narrow the pavements actually were. I didn't realise it was that small, and I think it is a big concern, especially if perhaps parents have prams or buggies, and they're not able to walk on the pavement. And obviously, if for example, it's a busy period of time and it's forced to walk on the roads, it's very dangerous. And I mean, I understand the frustration that the residents, who have to park on there, given the fact that they don't have parking. Obviously, they've got no other choice. But at the same time, I would say that the priority should go towards residents and members of the public, and their safety comes first. So what I would actually like to propose is not going out all double yellows, not even just keeping it the way it is, perhaps coming to a middle ground and putting a single yellow, so that throughout the day that section is clear, and then in the evening, perhaps when it's less quiet and there's less people on the pavements, residents are able to park safely, and there'll be less people to perhaps walk in those areas without causing any potential problems for them. So that's what I'd like to propose, if that's okay.
Can I just respond to the points there?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, as I said, one of the elements here we're trying to protect safety-wise is indeed, as mentioned by the councillor, is the footway. People do park on the footway and then park on both sides of the road, and the combination of parking on both sides of the road results in single-file traffic over a considerable distance. But what we have to bear in mind here is what we call, as I mentioned right at the beginning, the stopping sight distance, and basically, the quicker a car is going, the longer it takes to stop in the event of it having to stop for an emergency. Say, for example, somebody coming out of a side road or a door opening on the side of a car. So when you do look at the photographs, you'll see the centre lines on the road, and these lines are 4 metres long, and then there's a gap of 2 metres and another 4 metres. So a line and a gap represents 6 metres. So if you have that in your mind's eye, when you think about the stopping distance at 30 miles an hour of 60 metres, that's 10 lines and 1 gap. So when a car pulls out of the driveways, there's a car parked either side potentially, and it's got the bonnet of the cars goes out first without the driver being able to see sideways that distance. So the single line is fine for during the day, but at night time and after the lines come, the single line would mean 6:30 onwards in the evening, and before 8 o'clock in the morning, where a resident may want to leave his house to go shopping or something, and then they're not protected with the sideways visibility at that period. So I just sort of make that point to explain that the stopping distance applies for 24 hours a day in terms of it being a hazard for an emerging motorist.
Okay. Councillor Gloucester. You're on mute.
That better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. 3 questions, Gary. Number 1 is, have we got any collision data for this road before or after?
We have, but it's there aren't. What I'm trying to say is statistically insignificant in terms of numbers. It's neither high. It's just there aren't any there to speak of in terms of collisions. When you say collision data, I must say it would be injury data. As you know, we only collect injury data through the GMAXI system. There may be unrecorded damage onlys where a car has been hit but no injuries have been sustained.
Right. Second question is, just looking at these pictures, am I correct in saying in relation to these properties with drives on, each property appears to have some quite substantive access protection markings in relation to their driveways, which is obviously something that's been done previously to eliminate the problems that they have getting in and out.
So the history behind that is, obviously, as you know, introducing yellow lines, whether they're single or double, is pain for residents, etc., for parking outside their houses. So we do have to limit where we can and use access protection marking where that might be a more appropriate solution. However, in this case, access protection markings alone do not allow or do not provide that sideways visibility, and drivers from the other side of the road may park right up to the access protection marking. So you haven't gained much visibility either side of the motorist when he's coming out of the driveway, because right where the access protection marking finishes, you can't see beyond that car.
So I take it that was a yes then?
It was a yes. We had them in the past.
Okay.
As like
no, it's all right, Gary. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. My third one is, obviously it's a restricted road, 30 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Is there any, if we were to follow this rule, would this rule not apply all over the borough? Because I'm sure there's plenty of 30 mile an hour roads where, I can think of roads where this is exactly the same.
Well, potentially, yes. I mean, the question here is, how slow do people need to go as well? Because I've mentioned the 30 mile an hour stopping sight distance of about 60 metres. If we were lucky enough to have drivers going at 20, and that was managed by maybe traffic calming or a speed camera or whatever, you still have 30 metres of visibility at a 20. So if you had drivers going as slow as 20 miles an hour, you know, an access protection marking wouldn't be enough for the sideways visibility. So in terms of going across the borough, there are likely to be places like this, but you know, until maybe there's an issue brought to our attention, maybe residents' frustration at getting out safely, obviously we would look at them as a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and my last question really would be, if we were to put parking restriction on this length of the road, what's the likelihood of those parking restrictions being enforced, being as the area is so remote to the town centre?
Well, with it being in Delft, it's quite close to the existing school, where there's a school keep clear marking and a school safety zone, and this basically will be within the footprint of the school safety zone. And a point I haven't really made yet that the councillor made earlier was, you know, with restricted footways and people walking in the road, this can actually obviously include school children perhaps at this period. So it would have more of a potential to be monitored because of its proximity to a school than maybe other ones at other remote areas. So the fact that it's quite close to a school, there's every chance of these measures being monitored relatively regularly.
Right, okay, thanks.
Thanks. Any more questions? So, I mean, just to follow up that, Councillor Surjan suggested a possible single yellow line with restrictions, and it was meant potential of maybe reducing the speed limit to 20. I mean, would those two things, if both were done, would they make a difference? Would it make a difference at all? You know.
Well, if the two things there. So as I said before, the single yellows, rather than putting double yellows in, you will still have the visibility problem for vehicles in the evenings and the early mornings emerging from the side roads, because the people would park on the north side of Densho Road after 6 p.m. perhaps, and then all the way until, you know, 8 o'clock in the following morning. So during those periods, vehicles will be at risk exiting onto the main road without protection of double yellow lines. With regards to 20 mile an hour, again, signing alone doesn't guarantee compliance of a speed limit. And at the moment, Oldham follow the advice of the police where possible, when you want to introduce a 20 mile an hour limit, you have to have natural geometry of the highway to make sure that the speeds are kept low, or physical measures which might involve speed cushions and speed tables and road humps and that type of thing. Now, with it being an A classified road, we don't tend to put physical measures like road humps on main roads without a feature like a mini roundabout or a junction to start off the process. So in this situation, vehicles coming from the west, from Densho Crossroads area, wouldn't have anything in front of them until they hit the first road hump, which could be an issue if they approach it to higher speed. So we tend not to put road humps on classified roads of that nature. So we wouldn't be able to guarantee lower speeds. So that is one of the reasons why we have to maintain, where we can, the sideways visibility for the stopping distance that I've mentioned previously.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murphy, I think you've got your hand up.
I have, thanks, Chair. I couldn't support the recommendation for a single yellow line. I just think it defeats the object of what we're trying to achieve, especially in the evening. And I think the pictures are quite telling. They do say a picture speaks 1,000 words, and I think in this case it's quite a significant issue. So I'm moving the officer's report and to approve the experimental order and make it permanent.
Right. Okay then. So that, has anybody got any more questions for Gary? Okay. Thanks, Gary. Then.
Thank you.
Now the matter now is open for debate now. So Councillor Murphy has suggested that we accept the recommendation. Has anybody got any comments or on that? No? Okay, well, I think we'll go to the vote then. Does anybody have any...
Sorry, Peter. Can I just ask what the ward councillors' views are on this?
Have we got the ward councillors' views there?
There's something in the report somewhere.
It should be in the report. It should be. Is it in the report? Let me just check. It should be in there.
There's only one from
Partners.
Harkness from the thing, from what I can see. That's
On page 9 at 5.1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Councillor Burns supports option 1, which is to approve the order, and Councillor Harkness is against it from what I can see in relation to the scope of the issues. It's strange actually looking at the pictures. What I do know, like the big white man that's there that seems to be causing all the problems. If I'm correct, there's already restrictions in place there, but that's in breach of, and quite clearly, I'll go back to my previous statement of what's the likelihood of these issues getting enforced, and it's it just seems unlikely, because that's a picture of it on WL lines. I want that is an issue, that to me, but there's already the restrictions there, but nothing's being done about it.
I just comment then, Councillor Gloucester, that in the period that this things been the experimental order has been operational, that there's been good, what's the word? People are actually observing the measures generally, and the free flow of traffic and the ease of exit from the properties has been observed on a number of occasions. So, okay, the photographs may be showing some parking infringements there, but on balance, these experimental measures have been a success.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, just from a voting point of view, in relation to the restrictions that are asked for, I remain unconvinced, so my vote's no.
Well, we've not gone to the vote yet. So, Councillor Surjan, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Chair. I mean, I still have reservations about putting double yellows on, simply because, like Councillor Gloucester said, if there's already infringements happening, then I'm not too entirely, like I said, convinced about whether or not people will uphold that post double yellows. But like I said, my main priority is residents and members of the public walking on the pavements. I mean, obviously, I would have preferred if my single yellow suggestion would have gone forward, but it didn't. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we should just move to a vote then, if that's the case, and I'll vote how I need to.
Councillor Murphy, you've got a comment?
I have, thanks, Chair. Is it possible to, can we defer it, or so we can get some more enforcement in and try and address the comments and concerns that Chris has made? It's just a tricky one, this, and I'm just mindful about the cause and effect of what we're going to do, and I don't want to backpedal, and I still go by me picture speaks 1,000 words, and there is an issue here, but I'm just trying to think, if some of the measures are in place, is there a way we can defer it and I don't know, and try and get some more enforcement action up there to see if that actually does the trick?
I'll just ask the question, what would you mean by, what would you be enforcing? Would you be keeping the experimental one in place for a bit longer, or?
Yeah, just for a short while, and there's some pictures where, as Chris has alluded to, the van being a prime example, and try and do some enforcement there.
Just
Yeah. At the end
Go
of
on,
the
sorry.
day, sorry, I was just going to just jump in there, Dave. It's the what was I saying? The displaced parking element of this I haven't really mentioned yet. So the hardship or the pain that the residents on the south side of the road have to suffer is parking somewhere just remote from where they live, which is a hardship, I suppose. But there is facilities not too far away for them to park in an alternative location, rather than parking, creating the risk for the people on the driveways. So I just probably make that point. But you know, as we all know, there's no right of a car to park on the highway, and if it's causing a road safety issue, that's when we address it with yellow lines and TROs, etc.
So if I can just come in there, Gary, I mean, you're involved with the discussion now, aren't you? So that's fine, I don't mind. So you're convinced that we've had enough time to give this a go and see that everything works okay?
This could be a location where we'd like to have a site visit. You know, I think that sometimes that might have happened in the past, where the panel will go and visit the location as a site visit, and I'd be able to be involved in that if that was an option to think about. But Alan, would the experimental nature of this scheme be something we could extend?
Well, the trouble I was going to say, Chair, the trouble that you've got is this order expires in January. So you've either, if you don't confirm it as a permanent order, the restrictions will cease in January, and we'd have to make a new experimental order or a new order. But come January, all those restrictions, unless something happens, will have to be removed.
Okay, then. Well, I'd suggest then that we proceed to the vote then, because it's getting a little bit complicated now, isn't it? What does everybody think about that?
Yeah, fine.
Could I just say, Chair, nobody's seconded anything yet, so you actually haven't got anything that you can vote on until somebody seconds something.
Well, I'll put forward that we approve this application. Have we got a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll second it. I think, like I mentioned before, the priority of the pedestrians are far more important than the vehicle and the car owners. And if, like Gary said, if there is parking available, even if it is a few meters up from the houses, then, I mean, yeah, I should be okay with that then. Yeah.
Okay, so that's been seconded. Any further comments off the members? No. Do the officers have any comments before we proceed to the vote?
No further comments, thank you.
No, Chair.
Right. Okay, we'll go to the vote then, please.
Councillor Davis?
Approve.
Councillor Gloucester?
Against.
Councillor Murphy?
I know I moved approval, but I'm going to go against.
And Councillor Surgeon?
Approve.
Okay, so the recommendation. So there was 2 votes for
And 2 against.
and
so
2 against, but I think I carry the casting vote. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, as Chair, you have cast your vote.
Okay, so the recommendations are approved. Thanks, Gary. I don't know if you're staying for the next one or not.
Yeah, I'll present the next one, which is very simple.
Item 7, Lomas Street, Failsworth.
Yes.
Objection to traffic regulation order. Would the officer like to introduce the item, please? Gary, please.
Okay, so this is the proposal to introduce double yellow lines within Lomas Street was promoted to assist employees of the NatWest Bank to gain access to their car park area, which is located at the southeastern end of the street. There is very little on-street parking available within the surrounding highway network of the bank. Consequently, cash machine users, nearby businesses and visitors to the bank use Lomas Street's car to park. The The level of parking taking place is preventing employees of the bank from accessing their own car park area, hence the reason why double yellow lines are being proposed. So these were proposed initially, and then the objection received an objection. So the matter has been discussed with an objection has been received from a nearby business whose customers use the Longmas Street to park, and they are concerned that their customers will struggle finding alternative parking nearby. So the matter has been discussed with the NatWest Bank, who have confirmed that if the length of double yellow lines were reduced to one side of the road, they could still access the car park. This would then leave a small amount of on-street parking available. So our preferred option is option 3, which is proceed with a reduced number of double yellow lines to allow access to the car park and also some access to the parking on Longmas Street itself.
Okay, thank you. Does any members have any questions for Gary? Councillor Gloucester?
It's not a question. I'll just say that I think that's an adequate compromise. I propose that we move to the vote, and I recommend the option 3.
I'll second that, but has anybody else got any further comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm against it, because I think customers around that area, residents around that area who utilise that bank and the businesses there will be severely affected. So I would actually say to go with just keeping it the way it is, to be honest. Those are my thoughts anyway.
Okay, well, let's go back a bit then. Let's go back to Alan. Gary, sorry, has anybody got any questions for Gary then?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Gary, actually. I know you mentioned the business are the ones that have asked for this. But have any local residents, supported this restriction on Longmas Street?
Right. So I made it explain it very well, actually. So Longmas Street is a small side street that comes off Manchester Road. You can see that on the plan. And off Longmas Street is a car park. Now, that car park is for the employees of the bank. Now, because Longmas Street is used by a whole bunch of people, not just people who want to get to the car park, but maybe want to go to the cash point or the businesses nearby, the presence of those vehicles on a daily basis prevents NatWest Bank people from getting to their own car park. So once they drive off Manchester Road into Longmas Street, they find it difficult to access the car park. So initially, the proposals were to put double yellow lines on both sides of Longmas Street, and that's when the businesses objected. So NatWest said, well, we probably can get to the car park if we only have one side of the street treated by double yellows rather than both sides. So we adjusted our proposals to only put them on one side of the street, which will allow some of the businesses to park on one side, but still maintain access to the car park for the NatWest Bank people. So it's like a compromise. The NatWest Bank has said, we can allow some parking on Longmas Street for the associated businesses in the area, as long as we can get into the car park ourselves.
Councillor Gloucester, have you got a question?
Apologies, I still have my hand up there, Peter.
Okay, thanks. And Councillor Murphy, have you got a question?
No, Chair. It's just to second Chris's option 3, and that's to support the officer's recommendation. I know we've not gone to the vote yet, but
before that,
have
you got any more questions for Gary then? So, okay, if that's the case, has anybody got any further any comments? No? Okay, so Councillor Gloucester, you said you'd like to move it. And Councillor Murphy, you'll second it. I said I would, but I'll leave it to you two. That's fine. And so that's seconded. Do the officers have any comments before we proceed to the vote?
No, Chair.
No, thank you. No, Chair.
Okay, in that case, then we'll proceed to the vote.
Councillor Davis?
Approve.
Councillor Gloucester?
Approve option 3, just to be precise.
Yeah, option 3, sorry.
Councillor Murphy
Approve option 3.
and Councillor Surjan.
Against option 3.
Right, okay then. So the recommendations are approved. Thank you. Right, so moving now. Thanks, Gary. I don't know if you're still here or not, but I keep trying to get rid of you, don't I?
No, I'll stop. I've got nowhere else to go for a few minutes.
Okay, item 8 then. It's public footpath diversion orders. Section 119 of the Highways Act 1980 and Section 257 Town and Country Planning Act 1990. Diversion of definitive footpaths 118 and 185 Saddleworth Part at the Old Vicarage Street House Lane, Dobcross, and Mount Sorrel Mount Lane, Dobcross, and S52 to Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. Modification of the definitive map and statement. Would the officer like to introduce this item, please?
Yes, Chair, I'll deal with this matter. It's not my report, but it's probably more appropriate for me to deal with it. Basically, what we've got here is that there are 2 footpaths in Dobcross. Footpath 118, which is at the Old Vicarage Street House Lane. That footpath currently runs through a building, and the other footpath is footpath 185. That runs through a proposed development which has got planning permission and the garden of the property at Mount Sorrel. And the owner of those properties, it's the same person who owns both properties, has asked whether the footpath can be diverted. So partly it's in relation to the footpath 118, so it doesn't actually run through a building, because obviously clearly you can't walk through a footpath when there's a building on top of it. And in relation to footpath 185, the guidance from the government is that really if footpaths run through people's properties and gardens, there's a reluctance on the part of footpath users to go through them very often. And the government view is that really, if you can, you should try and, if it's possible to do so, and it's in everybody's interest, if you can divert it away from the garden, it makes it more likely that the footpath can be used. So the applicant has asked whether the council was prepared to divert both of these footpaths on those grounds, and the Section 119 of the Highways Act allows us to do that, where we consider it's in the interest of the owner that the path can be diverted, and Section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act allows us to divert a footpath where there is a planning permission to be implemented, and it would allow the development to be carried out. So that's the application we've had. The officers are happy with it. If you approve it, what will happen is we will advertise it for the public to express a view on it. If we get any objections once we've advertised it, it has to go to the planning inspectorate, and there will be an inquiry, or representations will be made, and it will be the decision of the planning inspectorate as to whether the diversion actually does take place.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any questions for Alan? Okay, then. Thank you then. So we'll open it up for debate. Anybody got any comments?
I think the only comment I'd make really is, you know, I would recommend that we approve this, because if anybody's got any objections, and in all likelihood the objections will be the ramblers, then I'm pretty sure it'll be, well, actually it won't be coming back to us from the sound of it, it'll be going elsewhere, but from my point of view, I'm quite happy to approve this.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I think it just makes sense, and it's not like they're completely closing off any footpaths. They're obviously making it more accessible for everyone, and there'll be signage, etc. So yeah, happy to second the motion.
So we've got a mover and a seconder. Has anybody got any further comments? No? Okay then, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Do the officers have any comments before we go to the vote?
No, Chair.
Thanks. Okay, in that case, then we will proceed to the vote.
Councillor Davis,
Approve.
Councillor Gloucester,
Approve.
Councillor Murphy,
Option 1 and approve the recommendation.
and Councillor Surgeon.
Approve.
Unanimous?
Okay, so that's 4 votes for. Brilliant. I knew we'd get there. I'll agree on something in the end.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so that concludes the business of this evening's business. Thank you, everybody.
Peter,
Thanks a
can
lot.
I just
That's quite a long one, isn't it?
before we all disappear, can once we've gone off live, can I just speak to you about another matter?